So good evening everyone, I am Vishal Salsekar and today we are going to discuss the News Today edition of 3rd and 4th of August, right? So in this edition of News Today, we are going to cover 5 main news which includes, first is about the Hope Analog mission which is inaugurated in Ladakh. Second important news that we are going to discuss is about the Tamil Nadu state policy which is regarding the transgender person. So there is also a national level act or the statute regarding the transgender person, but there are certain issues or the critical aspects that can be worked upon. So Tamil Nadu state has revised its policy in order to include certain lacuna related plugins. Next is regarding the organ transplantation in India. So we are going to discuss regarding what is the framework, what are the policy related aspects in this context, which is regarding the organ transplantation in India. Next, we are going to discuss regarding the amendments in the edible oil regulations. So there have been certain stringent regulations that have been now put upon the edible oil related things. So we are going to discuss in detail. The last article is regarding the fisheries sectors in India. So what is the importance of fisheries sector? How UPSC can ask about this particular thing? Because eventually what happens that anything which we are going to discuss in these articles or whether the quick updates, it has to be related with what UPSC is exactly asking. Because anyways, you are reading newspaper, right? Now, what extra you are going to get in these particular discussion that are specific thing that we are going to discuss in this News Today discussion, right? Apart from that, we are going to discuss the quick updates also, brief news with certain context if there is any, right? So we are going to discuss that also. So let's start the discussion for the today. So the first article is regarding ISRO inaugurated the Hope Analog mission in the Sokar Valley in Ladakh region. Now, when we are discussing these kind of topics, why these are important? Because if there is anything which is from the science and tech perspective, because if there are any specific developments that are going on with respect to the space organization, be it India or any major changes or the technological upgradations, with respect to the world, we have to have an awareness regarding this, right? So from the syllabus point of view, if we see from general studies 3 perspective, because science and technology is inherent part of GS3, and here the science and tech, which is the achievement of Indians in science and technology, apart from that, the indigenization of technology, that has to be discussed, and the developing of the new technology. So whatever developments are going on in India regarding whether the space domain or whether any specific thing with respect to the science and technology, that are very, very important even from the examination perspective, right? So let's start the discussion of this topic. So what is HOPE mission? It is the Himalayan outpost for the planetary exploration mission. Now, what is the Himalayan outpost for the planetary exploration? So suppose a scenario where you are about to enter upon any specific planet or maybe any other body other than the Earth. Now, you do not exactly know how the situations are. What you know that what might be the condition. So you might be having an awareness regarding this. But whether your body, whether your psychological response, whether your response from the organ of your body, habituation for that, the psychological thing, all these things, not necessarily be accustomed to that thing. And eventually you have to remain adapted to that thing if you want to survive on those specific planet, even with respect to the support system that you are going to get. So in this habituation related aspects, when we are to go to any specific planetary body, these missions are very, very important. So what is going to be done in this mission? In very simple term, I am telling you that suppose if you are about to go to Mars, so if you are an astrophysicist or maybe any specific individual who are going to go on any specific space mission, now you should be habituated to that specific environment. So the missions like HOPE, which is the Himalayan outpost for the planetary exploration, is going to make sure that you get habituated to those specific situations. Now, what kind of habituations might be there? So the habituations may be with respect to the living related things. For example, how you are going to survive in those particular scenarios. So for example, how in the extraterrestrial environment you are going to survive. So there is a habitat module as a part of this. And another module, which is the utility module. Because see, eventually when you will go there, you are not just living. You are going to perform certain tasks. You are going to identify that what are the changes, whether it is with with respect to the genetic things or genomics, or it is like physiological or psychological or any other kind of changes that you are going to observe. So the utility module is going to be concerned about that. So in this specific mission, which is a partnership of ISRO and in ISRO specifically Human Space Flight Center, and apart from that there are many such private sectors that are also going to take participation apart from the institutions that are concerned with the space related technologies, right? So these are the stakeholders that are concerned with the HOPE mission. Now the modules we have discussed about that, it is in order to ensure that you survive in those extreme conditionalities and also able to perform and observe that what kind of changes you are observing, so that suppose tomorrow somebody else is going, so those kind of habituations can be provided beforehand so that their chances of survival and performing those tasks adequately are very, very high, right? So these are the modules. Now objective and the module related things we have already discussed. Now talking about the observation, that what all observations are going to be conducted in those specific situations. So the observation includes the epigenetics and the genomics, which is basically your response to your genes as well as your cellular aspects with respect to those conditions which you are going to get, maybe in the zero gravity situation, maybe in the harsh climate, maybe where you are not going to get proper atmosphere, right? The rare atmosphere that might be there, high exposure of the UV rays that may be there, right? The extremities of the climate that you might be observing. So all these situations may, how your internal organs, how your cellular response will be there, these things are going to be performed in this. Apart from that, not only your physiological, even your psychological responses. For example, there will be situations of the solitary kind of confinement or maybe the solitude in those particular region, isolation, extreme mental issues that might be faced if you are not adequately checking upon your responses, right? So the physiologic or psychological aspects are also going to be concerned apart from the physiological things. Apart from that, what other observations that will be there? The sample collection, because we are right now mimicking similar kind of conditions like, let's say, Mars or Moon or any other kind of planet that you might be observing. Iske alawa, there will be collection and the microbial analysis. So those things are also being performed in the missions like HOPE. Next is the validation of the health monitoring and the planetary surface operations that are also going to be there. And apart from that, the surface operation protocol. So what all scenarios in future you might be encountering upon, you are going to get a kind of like match practice for that in the missions like HOPE. Now, why specifically the Sokar Valley of Ladakh region was chosen as the location to perform this HOPE mission? So there must be certain climatic condition or certain things which are mimicking the exact exoplanets or maybe the planets other than Earth. Those conditions might be mimicked upon, or those kind of conditions we are able to find in the region of the Sokar Valley. So here, apart from this things like the conditions which we had discussed, like the high UV radiation exposure. So this is a kind of like the cold desert like situation where there will be rarity of the atmosphere, where there will be high UV radiation exposure. So all those things which you are going to get in the external planets where there will be very less or negligible presence of the atmosphere. So those things can be replicated over here. So the technology test or the astrobiology research that can be performed with the conditions that are needed to mimic those kind of things. Similarly, the low atmospheric pressure that we had discussed, like the rare atmospheric pressure or the rarity of the atmosphere that will make you habituated to those particular regions. Apart from that, extreme cold, because again, because of the latitude of that particular region along with the altitude also, that is making it extreme cold and very harsh climatic conditions that you are going to get over there. Apart from that, the saline permafrost region. So it is again a region which is permanently frozen And apart from that, again the condition things, for example the saline permafrost, it's not like the freshwater permafrost, it is a saline kind of permafrost region. So again the harsh aspects are further increasing with these kind of conditions. Apart from that, is it the HOPE mission the only mission that across the world any country is having? So the answer is no, because UPSC might ask a statement like this, that this is the first experiment across the world in order to mimic the external planet like simulation in India or Ladakh region, right? So there are many other research centers that are there across the world. So prominently from the country like United States, the Mars Desert Research Station. Apart from that, from the Canada also there is the Flashline Mars Arctic Station of Canada and the BIOS 3 of Russia. So these are certain stations which are also performing the task in the similar manner. And again, the conditionalities in these regions also might be mimicking these things only, because eventually if you are going to practice the living and also performing certain experimentation in these regions, simulating the conditions of those planets, then only the chances of getting habituated very easy and performing your task for a longer duration will be increased, right? Now, see, in order to go for betterment with respect to the space race, not race basically, but the advancement that India is doing with respect to the space technology, and UPSC is also asking about these things. So regarding that, India's ambitious project, which is Gaganyaan, right? So what is Gaganyaan? So there will be a crew module which will be launched from the Earth, and right now the target year is roughly 2027, because it has been increased from 2022 to now again simultaneously 5, 6 and now it is 27. So what we are going to do in the Gaganyaan? So there will be a human space flight mission which will be launched from Earth. Then it will be orbiting roughly at 400 kilometers orbit for 3 days. It will be performing the task, the similar task that the people are performing or the astronauts are performing with respect to the International Space Station, and then they are going to return back to Earth after 3 days. So ऐसा नहीं है कि this is going to project the permanent space station. That will be the later project that India is going to do. Right now the target is kept as 2035 ke around. But then this is a kind of mock drill for that. So 400 kilometer and 3 days ka mission that is planned, right? And then eventually they will come back. There will be a landing that will be in the sea. Now, apart from that, what will be the launching vehicle? So launching vehicle is basically the rocket which is carrying you, and then there is a payload that, like in this case, there will be a crew module that will be attached. So LMV3, which is the GSLV3, which will be utilized as the launch vehicle for this. Now the major milestone means what are the steps that are taken. So ऐसा तो नहीं होगा कि in the very beginning only you will send the human to the space, right? If you are experimenting with that technology, what you will do, there is first integrated airdrop test, means from the planes you have dropped certain payloads to check whether the parachutes are getting open properly, whether all the things are getting simulated. Then what you have done, the test vehicle mission. So you have identified that which particular vehicle will be suitable. Then the pad abort test, means if God forbid, there might be certain issues with respect to the launching. So there will be a launch vehicle, there will be the crew module. So crew module has to be separated from the launch vehicle. So that particular test is the pad abort test, right? Then there will be unmanned flights and the manned flights. So certain steps have already been completed. Now there are very high chances that in 25, 26 and 27, there will be unmanned flight with some mimicking wala, maybe the astronauts, not the real ones, and also let's say with some technology demonstrators, and also maybe some humanoid might be there. And apart from that, lastly will be the manned flight, where the individual with the support from the space agency will be sent for the mission, right? Now, how UPSC had asked the question regarding the space related things. So see, UPSC in 2019 asked about what is the India's plan to have its own space station and how it is going to benefit the space program. Now see, the Gaganyaan is going to project that particular human space flight. Eventually it will come back, but then it will be a major milestone in order to later achieve the space station, because space station is also the similar kind of module, but that will be sustaining in the orbit, right? So that was asked. that how and what is the India's plan, what India is doing with respect to this. Even after this, there has been another question which I have not incorporated with respect to the Chandrayaan and the Mars orbiter mission. Apart from that, even the another question with respect to the Chandrayaan and Mars orbiter mission that have been asked and asking regarding that India has ventured unmanned vehicles, right, or the unmanned operation, but not ventured into the manned space mission, both in terms of technology and logistics. So you know that there are a lot of technology demonstrator right now going on, and eventually in future there will be the manned missions also. Apart from that, even from the generalistic perspective, the question asked about the Juno mission of NASA helped to understand the origin and the evolution of Earth. Now, why people are going to different planet? In order to identify that what are the material, how the evolution might have been there, how tomorrow if there will be any atmosphere that is developed on any planet, what will be the conditionalities that might lead it to. Right. So these particular things have been asked. So similar question can be asked with respect to these also, like the missions ke context mein, because Juno mission and all. So UPSC has the tendency to ask about the missions also. Next question is about the Tamil Nadu government's launching of the state policy for the transgender people. Now, from the UPSC's perspective, why it is important? Because the vulnerable sections of the society, be it the part of the general studies paper 1 society topic or the general studies paper 2 social justice topic with respect to the government's policy regarding them, it is very, very important. So you can see GS paper 1 with respect to Indian society, diversity of India, and the GS paper 2, which is the welfare scheme for the vulnerable section, and the policies by the center and state regarding this. These are the topics clearly mentioned by UPSC, and every year they are asking similar kind of questions. Like, let's say this year they might be asking regarding transgender, next time they might be asking regarding, let's say, children, then the persons with disability, maybe women's, maybe the deprived sections of society. So they keep on asking question about these. Now, when we are to discuss the topic regarding the transgender, first let's understand why this particular term is being used. Who are the transgenders? So basically, in very simple terms, the transgenders are the people whose identification of gender is concerned with or different to, we can say, than the gender assigned at the birth. So maybe you might be identifying yourself someone else. Maybe you might be born as a male or female. So that might be considered as a transgender. Means you are not considering yourself as a male or female. So simply, as per the Protection of the Rights of the Transgender Persons Act of 2019, what is the definition? It is the transgender person is someone whose gender identity does not align with the gender assigned at the birth. Right? So this is, in very simple term, it is known as the transgender. Now, see, you might have heard a lot of policy discussions. Different countries ka government are formulating policies with respect to this. You might have heard the term LGBTQ and sometimes used as plus. So those particular terms are being utilized in order to highlight the transgenders. Right. Now, in that case, ऐसा नहीं है कि since time immemorial this particular concept was there, and in Indian polity, many of acts or many of the legislation statutes are not having the inclusion as far as the term of transgender is concerned. So there have been a evolution or the development of this particular term over a period of time. So when we talk about the recognition of the transgender and the transgender right and regarding the frameworks of the transgenders, so the first prominent act first prominent Supreme Court or any specific judgment that was there with respect to the Nalsa versus Union of India case of 2014. अच्छा, अब इसके पहले there was a Nas Foundation case, but that was with respect to decriminalization of homosexuality, which was upheld by the High Court of Delhi, but later overturned by the Supreme Court of India. But then eventually in 2014, a Supreme Court verdict came in the Nalsa versus Union of India case, where they had recognized the term transgender. They had recognized the existence of transgender. They had recognized that there is a need for affirmative action or certain reservation policies for the transgender people. And even apart from that, they had recognized that there should be fundamental rights that should be available to the transgender people. It has also recognized that they are the vulnerable section of society, because as per 2011 population, 2011 का जो census था, as per the population of transgender was very, very less. That does not mean necessarily that this is the number of transgender population, because many a time there is a social taboo that is assigned to them and eventually they are not highlighting their identity. So this was the first landmark judgment, which is the Nalsa versus Union of India case, and here they had got the recognition. After this, there was another case in 2019, which is regarding the Arun Kumar and Shrija versus the Inspector General of Registration, 2019. What happened in this particular case actually, that there was the registration of marriage that was done of Arun Kumar and Shrija. Now the issue was that the marriage related acts that are there in India, specifically the Hindu marriage related acts that are there, they are not recognizing, and not specifically any community. The recognition is lacking with respect to the third gender or the transgender people, right? So in this case, Arun Kumar and Shrija versus Inspector General of Registration, what Supreme Court had decided, Supreme Court said that the transgender have the right to self-determination, means they can identify whether they want to identify as which particular gender or any other gender. Matlab, if they are male, they want to identify as a female, they can do. So this was another landmark judgment which was regarding the self-determination of the gender identity. Now in that case, there was identification of bride by Shrija. Right. Now in this case, what actually happened, that this has determined that the self-determination is the thing that have to be taken into consideration, but the acts were not changed. The Hindu marriages related act was not changed. So the succession, property disputes, right now also there might be issues with respect to this. Now then government has taken the cognizance and government came up with the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act of 2019, where the government has provided a specific statute, government has provided a lot of powers, government provided the reservation provisions, government provided the health, education and different other manners mein what kind of rights that can be provided to the transgender people. So if there is a question in the UPSC examination regarding the evolution of the framework, this can be the framework that can be utilized by you. Now simultaneously in 2018-2019 there was another major development regarding the decriminalization of homosexuality. Now again, not directly related, but in reference you can utilize that also. So there was Navtej Johar case where there was decriminalization of the homosexuality, the 377, which was the section of IPC that was struck down. Okay. Now when we talk about what recently Tamil Nadu government has done, so in the Tamil Nadu's policy, they have again re-emphasized that the education, employment, healthcare, housing and safety, all these rights are the basic and the fundamental rights even for the transgender people. Apart from that, it is also going to identify the steps that are needed in order to amend the Hindu Succession Act and the Indian Succession Act, which are the acts they are governing the property succession, property dispute, inheritance of the property, right? So in that case, suppose karo, if it is mentioned that the child, male or female, now in that case, sometimes the transgender is not mentioned. So that specific things will also be mentioned in these. Next is allowing the transgenders and the intersex people to choose their gender. Now see, 2019 mein we know there was the act with respect to the transgender person, but there is a lacuna in that was concerned that still there has been the recognition or the certification that has to be done by the district magistrate. Now suppose karo, if the district magistrate is the authority that is going to identify that it is not anymore the personal choice, right? So in that case, what Tamil Nadu government policy is doing, they are allowing the transgender person and the intersex people to choose their gender. It will not be needing any kind of certification by any other authority or maybe the medical practitioner. Now, when we have talked about that Tamil Nadu government has done certain specific things which is going to improve the scenario with respect to the transgender people, even there are some things which they have not explicitly mentioned is about reservation. The states like Karnataka are talking about some portion of reservation, let's say 1%. So there are things that you can mention that the 1% reservation or some reservation can be also provided. Now, what are the issues broadly faced by the transgender people in India? The issues first is related to the thing which we have already discussed, is the legal and the identity issue. So 2019 Act is there. That act is providing the statute of protection with respect to the education, health, all the things are being provided. But then identification and the certification is being done by the district magistrate. This is the one such issue which is infringing upon their privacy and their self-determination right, which was upheld in the 2019 ka verdict. Next is the social discrimination and marginalization. I don't think so any of you might not be aware regarding what kind of social discrimination, whether it is at the educational institutions, whether it is at the public places, whether it is at any other places, with respect to even in the family, there have been the social discrimination. There has been a stigma, there has been a taboo that is attached to it. Apart from that, they are considered sometimes as the people who are not respecting the social norms. So that is the major thing. The educational barriers that are there. So there has not been specific, let's say the recognition, there may be the male and female toilet. So there is no specific recognition for the transgender. Apart from that, the bullying at the school and the college level, and there are many other issues that at the educational level they are facing. Similarly, the healthcare problems. So they might be in the need for certain specific kind of healthcare. The mental trauma, there is a stress, anxiety, a lot of issues, maybe the depression, because they are not able to communicate those things which are common to the people, right? To the family, peers, etc. Next is the economic exclusion. So all these things, apart from that, even the employers are not that much interested in order to employ. So if there are no steps that are being taken from the side of be it the state government or the central government, then the discrimination there is a very difficult thing in order to overcome that. Apart from that, the social aspect also has to be taken into consideration in order to change the stigma related thing. So social awareness is also very, very important. So when we talk about the scheme for welfare, there are certain schemes that are there. For example, SMILE scheme, which is the support for the marginalized individual for the livelihood and the enterprise. So in this particular scheme, there is a comprehensive welfare measures that are being talked about for the transgender people. Apart from that, the national portal for the transgender person in order to register or certify to get the online certification. Then the gender inclusion fund under the national education policy, that is also there. There are Garima Grahas that are there for as the shelter home for the third gender people. Apart from that, lastly, the PM Daksha, which is the Dakshata or Kushalta Sampann Hitagrahi, right? So in that, there is a skill development related quotient that is also going to get developed with respect to the third gender, right? So these are the prominent things that are being done with respect to the transgender. But see, at the end of the day, it is the society that have to accept. So till the point of time society is going to get apprehensive, the reform from the top to bottom is difficult. Yet there is a need for the proper policy structuring from the center and the state government, and also social change also is needed in this regard. Now, how UPSC had asked the question, not specifically about transgender, but there can be a question regarding the transgender, right? So despite the comprehensive policies for equity and social justice, underprivileged sections are not yet getting the full benefits of the affirmative action envisaged by the Constitution. So the Constitution talks about the right to equality. In the equality ka ambit, the transgender people also lies, right? So again, the vulnerable section are not getting the benefit of the affirmative action. Similarly, the development and the welfare scheme for the vulnerable by its nature are discriminatory in approach. So you know what we have discussed, what are the issues that are still pertaining with respect to the act that was brought by the government, and what might be the further development that can be there. You can talk about the Tamil Nadu model, where Tamil Nadu has taken a step in order to give the right to the transgender people. Again, there may be certain improvement that can also be suggested, right? Next article is regarding India's achieving 18,900 organ transplants in 2024. So now see, organ transplant or with respect to any kind of development as far as the health sector is concerned, there is the topic in the GS paper 2 which is related to the issues relating to the development and management of the social sector, services relating to health, education, human resources. So when we talk from the social justice perspective, this is a very important topic. Even apart from that, the health is a major topic, right? So this is there. Now when we talk about the organ transplant, so what is organ transplant? Now see, there might be some issues, maybe let's say genetic, maybe any other kind of issues in the course of life you might be facing, which might lead to the organ failure. Now in that specific situations, if there is a possibility of transplant, then the other person who might be even living or who might be deceased, if there is a organ availability and the person is willing to donate, then in that case that organ can be transplanted to the person, so that the person to whom the organ is transplanted can live properly without those issues again. For example, let's say the lungs transplantation, heart transplantation, maybe liver, pancreas, these kind of transplantations are being done. Now for that there is some demand, matlab there are sections which are demanding where the organ failure they are facing and eventually they need the support. There are donors also. So these are the supply side. Now as far as India is concerned, right now India is standing at the third position as far as the organ transplantations are concerned. So in India right now there is a gap that is existing between the supply side and the demand side. Matlab demand zyada hai but comparatively supply is limited or supply is less. Now we will discuss about that. So you might have got an idea regarding what is the organ transplantation. It is the life-saving therapies for the end-stage organ failure, जहाँ पर organ failure हो गया है, and the organs can be taken from the people who have deceased, or maybe those people who can function properly even with one organ, right? So maybe the kidney, right? So there can be donation of that, and in that case obviously that will not be the for the commercial purposes. See, in India there is a law that is in existence which is the Transplantation of the Human Organs and the Tissues Act of 1994, which was amended even in 2011. But that does not allow the commercial transplantation. Matlab, in the exchange of money, you are not going to do that, or may not be the forceful one, may not be the thing which is for any specific kind of consideration. So this commercial wala thing is prohibited. So that comes under the category of organ sale, or the organ related maybe the trafficking wala thing, that is the criminal offense. Now which particular ministry is governing this thing? So Ministry of Health and the Family Welfare is the nodal ministry which is governing this transplantation of the organs and tissues. Now this is basically helping with respect to regulation of the removal, then the storage, because the organs which are taken out from the bodies that have a lifespan, ऐसा नहीं है कि endlessly they will be there. So there have to be proper preservation. So removal, proper storage and transplantation means to the person who is in the need. So that particular process is being governed under this specific act. Also this act is banning any specific commercial dealing, right? Now when we talk about the national organ related transplantation program, so there have been certain things or certain structure that is attached to it. So National Organ Transplant Program, NOTP, which is there in order to ensure that there should be adequate access to the transplant. People should be aware that there can be donation of the organ even at the time of living and even after the death. You can give a declaration where the organs can be transplanted after your death also. And then the augmenting infrastructure means there should be adequate infrastructure also that should be available in order to have those particular organs preserved and safe. Now what is the framework of this organ transplantation program? So the framework is of 3 tier. First, at the national level, there is the body which is the National Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization, NATO, which is at the apex level, which is governing the nationwide framework for the organ transplantation, right? Regarding the guidelines, regarding the policy framework, right? Next is the regional level. So the country is divided into prominent regions, for example, the North region, South region, East, West region, and even the Northeast region. And each region may, there is a nodal point that is developed, which will be acting as a nodal point for the communication and performing the transplantation, right? So there is a regional organ and tissue transplant organization. Lastly, at the lowest level, there is the state organ and tissue transplant organization, which is at the state level. So the state policy related things are being governed from here. Now, when we are talking about this thing, the organ transplant, obviously there might be certain issues that are there with respect to the organs transplant in India. What are those issues? The first and foremost issue is that, see, there is a lack of awareness. Generally, hota kya hai? The people might be willing to donate their organ, but they do not have some kind of awareness, and because of which the donation rate is very less. So in India, it is less than even 1 in 1 million population. It is even less than 1 in 1 million population. Whereas in the European countries, country like US, it is way more. Specifically in Spain, it is more than 45, right? So this is the difference, and generally it is about the awareness. The people are not knowing that how they can donate. Even there are certain misconceptions that are attached to it, है ना? Maybe with respect to the kind of philosophical dichotomies, matlab it is in the contrast to some specific religious philosophies. It might be in contrast to the cycle of birth and death. So there may be some issues if you are donating your organ, right? So these might be the misconceptions that are there. Apart from that, people are not aware regarding what kind of benefit it is going to give to the other people's life. Because if your organ is surviving in the other person's body, then in that case, you are giving life to the other people. And even there may be more than 8 organs that can be transplanted. So even it is said that the one life can save more than 8 lives, right? Apart from that, the social and the cultural barrier, even the medical and the infrastructural deficiencies that are there, the centers at which the organ transplantation can be performed, even the infrastructure that needs to be catered, the human resources, these are the issues which we are facing right now. And these programs like the National Organ Transplant Program, these are the programs through which we are working upon it. And as said by the health minister and also many other dignitaries, that the India is working upon improving that specific architecture for the organ transplant. And right now there have been the initiatives in order to improve the health through yoga, through well-being, through Ayurveda. These are the things that are going to keep the individual healthy so that they can also contribute to the other person's life, right? Now, what are the initiatives that are taken? So the first initiative is the One Nation, One Policy. So aisa na ho ki because of certain state related thing, maybe interstate this cannot be performed. So there have been the state domicile, age limits, registration fees that have been removed for the deceased donor, for the organ transplant recipient. Matlab, in order to make sure that the process remains smooth, these things have been removed. Apart from that, the Aadhaar linked digital pledge portal, it was launched in September 2023, which will be ensuring that the people are taking pledges to donate their organ voluntarily, right? So there is a Aadhaar linked portal and there are more than 3 lakh citizens registered their pledges for the organ transplantation. Even there is Angdan Jan Jagrukta Abhiyan, means to spread the awareness, to spread the well-being, that how you are contributing to the other person's life. Apart from that, even the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana Ayushman Bharat scheme, which also includes the kidney and the bone marrow transplantation related aspects and the financial supports that can be provided for this. So these are the architecture, some of the architecture which are related to the organ transplantation. Now the question may be regarding the present policy and the issues that are there. So the question can be asked regarding this. The question might also be asked regarding the current architecture with respect to the organ transplantation. What are the issues and how that thing can be improved? Because right now India is at the third step, right? So if India have to improve, right now we have successfully done roughly 18,000 transplants, right? 18,900. So if we want to improve this significantly, then there have to be awareness and also the convergence of these schemes that are there. Next article is regarding the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, which notifies the amendments in the edible oil regulation. Right. So edible oil, we all know, we all are consuming that particular oil in our day-to-day life. Now, from the perspective of the UPSC examination, why these regulations are important? First are that which ministry is governing. So it is the Ministry of Consumer Affairs which is governing the things which are related or which are going to impact the consumers or the people who are consuming these particular things. Apart from that, from the GS paper 2 perspective, the government policies and the interventions for the development which is important, and even from the perspective of GS 3, economy, food processing, and even agriculture. Because when you talk about the oil seeds, so the oil seeds are also one such thing which can be improving upon the agriculture scenario as far as the India is concerned, right? So that is the also one thing which is important from the GS paper syllabus perspective. Now, what is the edible oil scenario in India? So see, these are the things which you can have the brief notes. Now, hota kya hai ki we might be studying these particular things as a part of our syllabus. हमने पढ़ भी लिया. You might have seen this particular video also. But see, till the point of time, you are not making certain structured notes with respect to these factual things, incorporating them in your notes, तब तक वो helpful नहीं रहेगा. Maybe a chance that these things might not be covered in the monthly compilations, or you might not be encountering these things later on. But suppose करो if there is a question about agriculture, in that agriculture or the improving agriculture aspect में, if there may be a thing that you can talk about from the perspective of the oil palm, oil seeds related things that can be suggested. So this specific article में से चीजें हो सकती है that you can quote in your answer. That will be only possible when you are going to have the notes regarding this. So which act is governing this edible oil scenarios in India or with respect to the edible oil? So it is the Essential Commodities Act में there is a order which is the Vegetable Oil Products Production and Availability Regulation Order of 2011, which is governing the edible oil related supplies. So Essential Commodities Act में all the essential commodities which are important and which are needed for ensuring a sustainable economy and the food availability. So that's why in the Essential Commodities Act this is the order. And now government has put changes with respect to the Vegetable Oil Products Production and Availability Regulation Order, and it is done in 2025. So the updated one is in 2025 recently. So what are the changes that are being put? So the first important change that was done is the registration certificate. So if you are having any specific oil firm, so there is a registration certificate that is needed from the Directorate of the Sugar and Vegetable Oil. Now this director can inspect whatever machinery you are possessing or whatever mill with respect to oil you are possessing. If you are making some claim with respect to the oil production, and if those claims are found to be fraud or may not be fulfilling, in that case there may be penalties that can also be imposed. Because see, if the oil is of a kind of tempered nature or there is some sort of milawat in that oil, so in that case, don't you think so it is going to impact a lot of life? So that's why there have to be some stringent regulation that were taken and that are incorporated in this particular order. So it is enhancing the transparency. It is going to prevent the supply disruption, because the stocks detail, where your firm is located, what is the amount of stock, what is the batch number, what is the basically the availability of the production capacity that you have. All these things now you have to put on the platform, so that there will be an idea regarding what is the supply and what is the demand of these particular products, for ensuring the fair prices for consumer. Because see, suppose karo if the supply is less than the demand, then in that case there may be rise of the prices. If the supply is too much and the demand is not that much, so in that case there may be crash of the prices, right? Accountability bringing and also stabilizing the edible oil prices in India. Now, why it is very much important from the India's perspective? Because for majority of the oil, we have to remain dependent on the other countries. So if you talk about the oil dependency of India, so India is one of the largest oil importers. I'm not talking about the crude oil, I'm talking about even the edible oil. right? So with respect to this, the majority section is of the import is in form of the palm oil, which is 59%, the soybean 23%, and the sunflower, which is 16%. So you can see roughly we have more than roughly around like 85 to 90%, 85% ke around we are in the form of import. Matlab the import ka this much is the distribution. When we talk about the import dependence, it is the 63.2%. So in that import, the palm oil, soybean and sunflower constitutes the majority. Like palm oil, we are importing from the countries of Southeast Asia. Now the import dependence is reducing from 63% to 54%, but still it is a majority. Matlab 50% se zyada hai. So there is a need to reduce that specific import dependence, because the country like India, which is having a large population, which is having a lot arable field, agricultural lands are there, we should be more in the form of producers rather than the importers of this. Now when we talk about the crops which are producing the oil or which are producing the oil seeds, these are the crops which includes the groundnut, rapeseed and the mustard, and the soybean is there, sunflower is there, sesame is there, then there is safflower is there, Niger seeds and the castor and linseeds that are there. So total 9 crop varieties that are giving us the oil from which we are extracting the oil. Now when we are talking about the domestic production, in the domestic production of the total oil seeds, not about the total oil requirement of India, domestic production ka 34% is soybean, rapeseed is 31%, groundnut is 27%. So again, more than 90% of this is these particular oil seeds, which is soybean, rapeseed and mustard and the groundnut. So roughly, if you have to answer any specific question regarding India's dependence on different countries for the oilseed and oil palms, so in that case you can talk about this data that we are roughly 54.9% still dependent upon the other countries in order to get the oils or the edible oil. Apart from that domestic production, maybe there are 3 specific varieties which are enjoying more than 90%. Matlab diversity is also comparatively lacking, right? So these are the things. Now, why we are a lot import dependent on this? When on the one side, the countries which are right now major producers of these oil seeds, they are adopting and they are deploying a high technological things with respect to the oil seeds. India ka 75% or 75% and more is dependent upon the rain-fed agriculture. So when we are talking about, let's say, making agriculture sustainable, and if we are still a lot dependent on the rain-fed agriculture, because see, majority production is going on in the form of the wheat and rice. So if we want to get comparatively more oil seeds, we have to increase the area, but not at the cost of the other crops. Simultaneously, we also have to incorporate the irrigation technologies that should be there. It should not be too much dependent on the rainfall, because the rainfall may be erratic sometime, right? Next is the lack of appropriate technology. So the technological front is also one such issue with respect to the oil seeds and the oil palms, right? So this is also issue. Next is the input starved condition. Matlab many of the input thing, whether it is fertilizer, whether it is adequate condition, whether it is water support from the side of government, these things are lacking. So this specific crops are lacking or having the input starved condition, jahan par inputs we are not getting properly. Then what government is doing specifically on this? So there are following initiative. First is the National Mission on the Edible Oil and Oil Palm, which is NMEOOP. Right. So this particular mission was regarding increasing of the production, increasing of the productivity, increasing of the supply chain, providing better inputs, all these things with respect to the oil seeds and the oil palm, with respect to the edible oil ka production improve karna. Apart from that, another similar mission which is part of the National Food Security Mission, which is for the oil seeds and oil palm. Again, the similar things that are being incorporated over here also, which is to increase the productivity and production of the oil seeds so that there can be self-sustenance of India on the indigenous oil production. And in that case, see, it's not only going to reduce the imports, it is also going to give adequate monetary support to the farmers who are going to produce this. Apart from that, they are also not going in the disguised unemployment, as in certain agricultural scenarios we are seeing, right? So they can also get comparatively better money for their produce, right? Now here also we have discussed that what kind of questions can be asked. So UPSC can ask the question about that, like in order to reduce India's import dependence on the other countries with respect to the oil seeds and the oil palm, with respect to the issues in the production, right? So these are the pointers which can act as a base pointer for your answer. The last important news for this particular day is the Union Minister reiterates India's second position in the fish production. Right. Now, again, the fisheries or the fishing related scenarios are important from the perspective of GS paper 3, because agriculture mein there is another aspect which is fisheries, which is also very, very important. So the economy, agriculture and food security, which includes agriculture and the food production, even the blue economy, rural development, these are the things which are very, very important. And UPSC keeps on asking question about agriculture and the associated things. And this particular aspect of blue economy, which is the fisheries, it is also very important theme in that. Now again, like we had discussed in the oil seeds and oil palm, there can be a prominent question with respect to the fisheries. Now the fisheries may, because agriculture mein UPSC had asked a lot of question. Now the fisheries is one such sector which has a lot of potential, because see, India has more than 7,000 kilometers of coastline. Apart from that, ऐसा नहीं है कि majority of India's fishes or fisheries are getting produced from the coastline. See, despite having more than 7,000 kilometers of coastline, the majority of fishing is being done in the inland manner. So the freshwater rivers or freshwater fishing, that is more predominant as compared to the coastal water or the saline water fishing. So India's fishing production ka 75% is coming from the inland fish production, matlab from the rivers and the associated channels, right? Now when we talk about the fisheries sectors, it is part of the state list in the 7th schedule of the Indian Constitution. Now again, as we have talked about, that there are two prominent sectors. One is the inland. So as far as the inland fisheries are concerned, whichever state it is in general being performed, so wahan par that particular state will be having the regulations. So for example, suppose if it is in the Madhya Pradesh region, if it is in the Uttar Pradesh region, if it is in, let's say, Maharashtra region, so that a state will be having the power to govern that fisheries. If it is at the coastal regions or in the marine domain, so in that case the coastal states will be having the regulating power, but the main thing will be provided, framework will be provided by the center. So it will be in the cooperation between the center and the state. So there may be certain acts or the model acts that can be provided by the central government, and then the state government are going to follow those things in their own domain. Now, this data set is very, very important. Again, if you are noting down some things from the discussion, note down, make a heading as the fisheries, then give a thing regarding the data. Inland fisheries production 75%, then the marine fisheries production with respect to India you can know now. Apart from that, what is its contribution as far as the GDP and GVA of the country is concerned? So it is more than 1%, 1.12%. But when we see from the GVA from the agricultural perspective, the total agriculture ka how much percent it is contributing, so out of total agriculture it is 7.26%. Means overall GVA is 1.12 and out of agriculture it is 7.26. Now again, another important thing is, in order to highlight the gravity of situation, you can use the data with respect to the people that are employed in the fisheries sector or that are gaining their employment from the fisheries sector. So it is more than 3 crore, which is 30 million or more population. Now it is very commonsensical to understand, because majority of the coastal states, wahan par agriculture se zyada fishery is more predominant. Even apart from that, there are a lot of sectors which are performing this fisheries, even maybe in the substantive, in a basis that they can sustain for their family or for the commercial purposes also. Apart from that, also government is supporting. So union budget of 25-26 has provided highest ever total with respect to the fisheries sector. So there is Ministry of Fisheries. So the support is also getting increased every year basis pe. Now, the next thing, when we have discussed a lot of data regarding this, highlighting that what is the significance of this specific sector as far as the Indian economy is concerned, blue economy is concerned, and overall economic architecture of the country and also the agricultural economy. So there are also challenges, Because right now it's not like that we are doing all the things in the correct manner with respect to the fisheries, though we are improving. So there are still a lot of issues. First is the environmental issues. Now this is the universal issue almost for all the countries, because there are issues. Let's say there is a lot of over exploitation of the fisheries resources. Sometimes you are doing the bottom trawling, matlab you are taking a large vessel, you are going to destroy the entire marine biodiversity also. So along with the fishes in the fishing nets, there are a lot of biodiversity other than fisheries that are also getting captured. So that is causing the issues with respect to even the feeds for the fisheries and sustenance of the ecosystem for the fisheries. Apart from that, even the climate change is impacting the fisheries product or fishes production in that particular region. So climate change की वजह से if there is temperature rising, that might not be the ambient condition for the fisheries sustenance, right? So there is the issue with respect to the same. Apart from that, when we talk about the economy, if there is lack of technological incorporation, or maybe with respect to things like, let's say, the extreme commercialization, that is also issue, because in that case a lot of population, we had seen roughly 30 million population which is dependent on fisheries, so that is going to get impacted. Apart from that, the blue economy is the main economic term associated with the fisheries and the marine resources. Now if there has been a lot of exploitative fisheries that is being done, or maybe sometimes lack of economy of scale that is performed, so both the extremes are not good for the fisheries sector. Next is the social issues. Now again, like in agriculture, even in fisheries, there have been a lot of social discrimination. Maybe the male vis-a-vis female population that is employed in the fisheries sector, that is also one such issue. Okay? So that is there. Apart from that, we know that the infrastructural gap that are also there, right? So from the side of, whether it is from the side of state or from the side of industries, there is a gap vis-a-vis the fisheries sector related infrastructure. Lastly, the resource management is also one such issue. The technological gaps, even when we talk about at the international perspective also, so when it comes to different countries relation, whether it is between India and Bangladesh, or with respect to India and Sri Lanka, or India and Maldives, there are sometimes tensions that erupts between these regions because of the fisheries, because sometimes the fishermen tend to pass to those particular countries, and then eventually there have been catching of the fishermen also in those regions. Now, what initiatives have been taken? So the initiatives include the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, which is holistic improvement in order to the fisheries ecosystem, right? So in this, there have been the improvement of the input, improvement of the fishing qualities, improvement of the entire supply chain, right? So all these things are being taken care of. So in this, there are sub schemes also. For example, Pradhan Mantri Matsya Kisan Samriddhi Sahi Yojana. So here they are focusing mainly upon the MSME industries. Within this, this is a sub scheme which is a central sector initiative which is talking about the Matsya Kisan Samriddhi Saha Yojana. Then there is aquacultural parks. So they are focusing upon the holistic development of the aquaculture, whereas from the feed to the last products, they are focusing upon the integration of the supply chain. Next is about the Blue Revolution scheme, right? In order to holistically improve the marine economy. Then the Fisheries and the Aquaculture Infrastructural Development Fund, specific fund created with respect to the aquaculture and infrastructure and the development. Then there is the 5th Marine Fisheries Census, in order to identify that what is the number of fisheries or produce available in different regions, so that accordingly measures can be taken either to divert the resources or maybe to further utilize the fisheries ground on those particular regions. Next is about India's endorsement to the Regional Plan of Action for the IW, which is the illegal, unreported and the unregulated. So this is also one such issue. This I was talking about with respect to the challenges. So there have been reporting of the illegal, unreported and the unregulated. The zones which are comparatively rich in biodiversity, if there have been a lot of illegal, unreported and the unregulated fishing, that is going to cause the issues, and this can cause the issues within the region and between the countries. So specifically they are talking about from the Bay of Bengal perspective, and here again the countries like India, then Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Maldives, the countries I have already talked about, they are cooperating in order to prevent illegal, unreported and the unregulated fishing. Now see, if this is illegal, unreported and unregulated, it is neither contributing to the country's GDP nor it is improving upon the economic scenario or giving the due rights to the people who are performing this fisheries. So it is siphoning off that particular chunk of economy. That's why there are regional collaborations also with respect to these. So this is about fisheries. Now again, the question, in what manner the question might be asked regarding fisheries. So similar to agriculture, the fisheries sector have the potential. So the question might be asking regarding the potential. So here the data with respect to this agriculture fisheries sector that can be utilized, that to show that what is the potential, the population involved, the government's increasing focus, and then what challenges that will be there. So agar dekho potential hai, to obviously there have to be some challenges that you have to overcome. So those challenges ko when you will overcome, eventually there will be success. So in order to overcome those challenges, the government has brought down certain schemes. So all these things can be framing a prominent answer to the question. So fisheries related, a lot of notes can be done from this entire topic discussion. I hope this is clear. Now there are certain quick updates that we have to discuss, right? So the first is the Mount Levotobi, right? So again, last discussion maybe we had discussed regarding this particular concept of the Pacific Ring of Fire. So this region of Pacific Ring of Fire, which also includes the region near the Andaman and Nicobar region, then entire your Indonesian islands, right? Apart from that, this particular entire ring within the Pacific region, which is very high as far as the tectonic and the other activities are concerned, which is leading to the earthquake, volcanism, right? Maybe again triggering the events like tsunami. So recently what had happened, that because of this tectonic plates activity, there have been eruption of the Mount Levotobi Laki volcano. So in the Mount Levotobi, there are two volcanoes that are there. So first is the Laki and second is the Perempuan. Right. So see again how UPSC asks. UPSC gives just the name in that context, and they might be asking that which particular country they are related to. So the answer will be Indonesia. Simply this much. Apart from that, there can be even the mains question that can be asked regarding the Pacific Ring of Fire, that why the majority of the earthquake and the volcanic activity of the world is situated in this region. Recently there was earthquake near the Kamchatka plateau, and that triggered the tsunami waves near the region of Russia and the Japan. So you have to have an awareness regarding these geographical phenomena. Next is regarding district flood severity index. So what is the context? So researchers from IIT Delhi and IIT Gandhinagar have developed a district flood severity index that factors the flood duration, historically flooded area, etc. to identify flood impact. Now generally hota kya hai, that if you know that this much amount of rainfall in that region, if that happens, और अगर आपको लगता है उतनी intensity हो जाएगी, then there might be high chances that there may be flood-like situation. If you as a district magistrate are aware regarding this situation, and if you see that the intensity is that much only, historically we have seen issues. So don't you think so if the overcast conditions are there, or maybe these issues start developing, then you can take the preventive and the precautionary measures. So in order to identify that, the district flood severity index is being developed. So what it is going to do, it is going to quantify the flood severity at the district level, so that the district planning can be a more proactive. Okay? So in this district flood severity index, there will be two parameters, and there will be sub pointers under this. First is based upon the occurrence of flood. Next is regarding the damage due to the floods. So occurrence of flood में the number of flood events, means अगर इतनी rainfall हुई तो कितनी बार flood आई. Then the mean flood duration, to how much duration this flood water is remaining there, kitne der tak this is going to impact. Then the flooded area, how much area got impacted, and the population. So through this you will get to know that if in future this much rainfall will be there, this area, this population, this much severity से impact होगा. Next is regarding the damage. So it includes the human fatality and also the number of human injured. Now if you already have this data matrix available, if the rainfall that is going on with some intensity, it is going to meet this particular criteria, if it is going to fit in this index, don't you think so as an administrator you are going to take certain precautionary measure, and you can even push the population to the safer regions and prevent any kind of damage, right? So district flood severity index. Next is regarding the cold pools. Now देखो, the context is that there is a study by the researcher at the University of the Washington that says that the rain sometimes makes the ocean surface heavier and more stable due to the cold poles. Generally देखो assume क्या किया जाता था, what was assumed basically that whenever the rain is there, so rain water is the fresh water and the oceans are basically full with the saline water. So when the fresh water is there, so fresh water as it is lighter, it will be on the upper side of the ocean when there will be rainfall. So there will be comparatively the warmer condition in those particular region, and those warmer conditions are comparatively good for the fisheries and the other conditions. But what they have observed that if there is, because of some situations, if there is the extreme rainfall in those region because of, let's say, storm or because of anything, so in that case क्या होता है कई बार कि when there is rainfall that is going on, so there is a rainfall and suppose करो rainfall is coming from here and this is the sea surface level, so sometimes the rainfall evaporates from here only, and when the rainfall is getting evaporated from here, so this layer becomes the cool layer, right? So when this is becoming cool layer, now in that case जो air mass है, whatever air is present in this region, this becomes cool. Now when it becomes cool, it becomes heavy and then it start descending, and then it evenly spreads over the sea surface level. So when they are creating this particular cooling effect over the sea surface, this is known as the cold pools, right? So because of your evaporation before reaching the ground, this cool heavy air sinks and the spread across the ground like a shallow or the cold bubble. This causes the cooling effect, and these are known as the cold pool. Simple एक statement दिया जा सकता है, and then they can ask with respect to cold pools, consider the following statements, right? Now see, again, what will be the characteristics? It will be the heavier, so there will be heavier condition, heavier air or the air mass near that particular surface region, right? And it will be more stable. So अगर मान लीजिए if there are cold conditions that are prevailing, so they will be causing the stable conditions. On the other hand, if it is warming, then this is causing destabilization, but the destabilization is promoting the mixing of the water in the ocean, and that is promoting even the fishing related things in the ocean, right? So this is regarding the cold pools. Next is the C-295 transport aircraft. Simply, it is like a transport or the carrier aircraft which India is taking from the Airbus. It is being designed and built by the Airbus. So the context is India received the final batch of 16 Airbus C-295 military transport aircraft. So in order to transport the logistics, sometime tank, sometime human, personal, so this particular kind of military transport aircrafts are used. So the medium range ke around this is the aircraft. Comparatively, we can say the flight duration maybe 11 hours ke around. This can do the maneuvering without needing of any specific fuel wala thing, right? The efficient tactical transport aircrafts are there, and it is going to replace IAF's aging Avro fleet. Not that important significantly, but you should be having an idea regarding the C-295 transport aircraft. Again, Airbus, because see why it sometimes become more important, because of the flight related crashes that are being observed, and Boeing is again and again in news. So the competitor of Boeing is Airbus, right? So that's why you should be having some idea regarding this, but not too much going into a detail of the same. Next is the notch signaling. So the context of this is that recently a team of the scientists at the Harvard engineered a synthetic activator of the key cellular pathways called the notch signaling. In very simple term, what is notch signaling? So होता क्या है कि there is a cell to cell communication is needed, and this particular cell to cell communication is being done through the notch signaling. So in the cell to cell communication for the developmental process and the tissue homeostasis. Now what is the homeostasis? So living organism maintains a stable internal environment. Outer side mein there are changes that are being observed, but in order to maintain the inner environment, this process is known as the homeostasis. So the signals ke basis par two cells are combined, and suppose karo this is the sender one, this is the receiver one, this is giving signal to this, and its properties are going to be dependent upon what kind of signal it is receiving from the senders, right? So that's why there may be even generation of certain diseases at birth and even at the later stages because of this notch signaling, right? So it can maintain the cancer stem cell characteristics which are crucial for the tumor initiation, recurrence and the resistance to therapy. So if suppose karo this particular cell is constantly giving signals to this regarding the having some kind of resistance to the cancer therapy, then there will be difficulty in order to treat that cancer tumor, right? So that can increase or aggravate the situations of cancer or certain other diseases which can be there because of the cellular issues, right? This is not signaling. Again, a conceptual thing, brief idea should be there. The Mahanadi water dispute. So again, interstate water dispute under Article 262, the Parliament has the power to adjudicate and to make the laws with respect to the interstate water dispute. That's why there was Interstate Water Disputes Act of 1956 was legislated, and that provided power to the central government to formulate the tribunal for the adjudication of the interstate water dispute tribunal. For the Kaveri, for Godavari, for different other rivers, there are tribunals available. So in 2018, there was a formulation of the tribunal of the Mahanadi Water Dispute Tribunal in 2018, because Odisha, which was the lower riparian state of Mahanadi, reported that the Chhattisgarh is constructing a lot of dam without the consent of Odisha, which is reducing the water supply to Odisha, right? And that's why there was an issue, and because of which the tribunal was created. But then now the states are saying that they are showing the willingness to resolve the dispute amicably, because see, this adjudication process is so prolonged that there are issues with respect to the adjudication. Apart from that, there are River Boards Act also, which are for the governing of the rivers, right? Next is regarding the Kopili River. So National Waterway 57, that is being operationalized now in the Kopili River. So this is situated in the Assam region, right? So this is as a part of the Maritime Vision of 2030 and the PM Gati Shakti. So in Assam, there are now 4 waterways that are operational. The Brahmaputra NW2 National Waterway 2nd, Barak NW16, Dhansiri 31 and the Kopili 57. So these are the waterways which are operational. So with respect to this, the Kopili River becomes important. So this is the major left bank tributary of Brahmaputra. Simply the question might be asked regarding a statement that Kopili is a major contributory or tributary river or the left bank tributary river of Brahmaputra. The statement can be like this: it is interstate river in the northeast. So Assam and Meghalaya are the states where this is situated, originating from the Saipong Reserve Forest in Meghalaya. So that's how a brief idea should be there regarding, let's say, this forest reserves might be asked and the location might have been given like Meghalaya. So you have to mark or choose the correct one, right? Next is the Maitri 1 initiative. So the Maitri 1 is launched in Gurugram to develop a 750-acre urban forest in the Aravalli Hills. So see, at different places, urban forestry related initiatives are being done, right? So this is the part of the Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam program, which was initiated by the Prime Minister, right? So again, what are the benefits of the urban forestry? All the benefits you can see here also. So for example, ecological restoration component, removal of the invasive species, the plantation of the native trees, because that will be sustaining for a longer period of time. They are accustomed to the local condition, restoring of the Aravalli specific biodiversity, and even the afforestation will prevent any kind of, let's say, the soil which is getting degraded, or maybe there may be the denudation or other issues which are there that can also be reduced. And in Aravalli specifically, the major issue was regarding the desertification of that particular region, the deforestation of the Aravalli region. So this is one step in order to revamp the forestry related things near the Aravalli region. Next is regarding the Sharda script. So the first ever exhibition showcasing the Sharda script, which is the ancient script that was originated in the Kashmir and traditionally used by the Kashmiri Pandits in the Chinar Book Festival, right? So what is this particular script? There may be a question regarding this. So it is script based on the Brahmic family of the scripts, right? Apart from that, the region where this script was more utilized was the Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh and Punjab. The time period was 8th and 9th century AD. So during that particular point of time, this is the region like Kashmir, Himachal and Punjab, jahan par this Sharda script was more utilized. Now see, because of the later changes in demography and the destruction of a lot of things. A lot of manuscripts are not now found, but that region was very rich as far as the development of the scriptures are concerned. Now in Afghanistan, we are seeing that there is a Ganesh statue in the Gardes region and the Uma Maheshwara sculpture near the Kabul region. These are the prominent sculpture of that particular time period. And the script which is mentioned there is the Sharda script. Now with this, we have completed the entire news today discussion. I hope you might have found it productive. Now there are questions that might be displayed on your screen. Try to attempt those questions, very important questions. Yes, there were certain concerns regarding increasing the number of those questions. Team will look after it, team will see, and they will increase. But till that point of time, there are also questions available on the digital current affairs portal. Utilize those also. Okay? So it's not about only reading only. You have to read, then practice, then try to incorporate. So today I have also discussed regarding the notes making. Try to utilize that, because till the point of time you are not having some consolidated notes, then there will be issues with respect to the data retention. So in order to ensure the holistic preparation, notes will be very, very important. Okay? Chalo. So thank you very much. Have a great day.